You want the short version first. 3 lines that grab you and don't let go. A woman shoved across a marble floor, an invitation ripped in half like it's worthless, and a rich family laughing while the whole room films. That's where this begins, and if you can't feel your jaw tighten by the 3rd sentence, you weren't paying attention. This is a story about being underestimated, about how dignity can be weaponized into power, and about how one moment of cruelty can become a reckoning. Act 1. The moment that breaks the room. It's opening night at the Grand Museum of Art, a fundraiser full of tuxes and gowns, the kind of event where the lighting is soft and the air smells faintly of champagne and old money. Maya Carter walks in wearing a simple dress, nothing flashy because she doesn't need flash. She's there for the program for the scholarship fund her family helped start. She carries an invitation, not a prop, not a costume. But as she steps toward the reception, Eleanor Pembroke, the matriarch of a company that's been in the headlines for decades, grips her arm and pushes her back hard enough that the guests gasp. Someone laughs, someone records. Eleanor plucks the invitation out of Maya's hand like she's plucking a bad apple, holds it up like a trophy, and rips it in two, slow and theatrical. Paper flutters, clicks of cameras multiply, and now this is entertainment. Her son, Charles Pembroke, has his phone out before anyone finishes breathing, whispering into a live stream, "This is peak entitlement watch." Their daughter Lila is already tagging friends, adding fuel to the fire. Maya bends and picks up the pieces calm as a church bell, hands shaking just enough to prove she's human. But she doesn't cry, she doesn't scream, she only says, "I believe there's been a mistake." That 3-word line does something weird to the room. It exposes them. For a few beats the crowd watches like a pack of vultures, some delighted, some embarrassed, a few quietly uncomfortable. The museum security moves in, the director hovers, and Eleanor gives her performance. "We simply can't have gatecrashers, darling. This is an exclusive event." It is the kind of line that sounds civilized until you realize what it really means. You don't belong because you don't look like us. You don't belong because your dress isn't a label. You don't belong because we choose who belongs. Act 2. The turning. Maya stands there, invitation pieces in her palm, while the Pembrokes narrate her as if she's a curiosity. They call for security, they laugh, they broadcast. But somewhere between the 10th and 15th camera angle, something shifts. An older man at the edge of the room, not rich, just quietly watching, starts filming too, not to mock, but to preserve. A respected surgeon furrows her brow and whispers that this feels wrong. A judge in the room who's made a career of seeing through prejudice steps forward and says, "This has gone too far." Maya doesn't flinch. She pulls out her phone and dials a number. Not to beg, not to plead, but to make sure someone powerful knows what's happening. Her voice over the line is steady when she says, "Dad, I'm at the Grand Museum. They're tearing up our invitation." The room grows quiet like a dropped curtain. Because the man on the other end is Elijah Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Systems, a man who runs things with data and has no patience for spectacle. He arrives, calm a presence that tilts the room. He doesn't storm. He stands, listens, and then he asks to see the footage. That's the pivot. The Pembrokes' performance was meant to humiliate one woman in a crowded room. Instead, it becomes evidence. Charles's live stream. Lila's IG live, the museum photographer's shots. They all stitch together into a tapestry that suddenly looks less like a joke and more like proof of something ugly. Screenshots spread faster than apologies can be invented. The board member staking a $600 million partnership that Charles's father, Richard Pembroke, needs. They see the clip. They watch a family call a woman trash. They hear laughter as an invitation is destroyed. Context collapses into consequence. Elijah Carter, who can be surgical with a spreadsheet, turns to the room and says something simple. This is not just bad manners. This is a values problem. He calls his team, pulls up the partnership clauses on his phone, and quietly begins to lay out terms. The Pembrokes' faces blanch when he mentions values alignment and board review. The social media numbers climb, and with them, calls come in from lawyers, from investors, from partners who suddenly remember their ethics policies. It isn't dramatic theater anymore. its corporate fallout. Act 3. The Reckoning and the Question. The Pembrokes scramble. Brands privately message sponsors pull back legal advisors, ask to be heard. The deal that would have saved Pembroke Holdings is suddenly not guaranteed. The laughter dies. The cameras keep rolling. Maya watches as the people who put her in the center of this nightmare now find themselves centered, on screens, in messages and boardroom calls. Some of them beg. Some of them try to frame it as a misunderstanding. Some of them push the "it wasn't meant that way" shtick. We've all heard it before. But Maya's not interested in revenge. She wants accountability that changes behavior. So she asks for 3 things: public apology, a commitment to real bias training for the Pembroke board, and a fund to support the programs she and her family have long championed. The man who owns the cameras, the old businessman who recorded from the edge, offers his footage to the investigators. The judge and the surgeon step forward as witnesses. Under the hum of camera rings and the glow of notification screens, a list of demands is delivered, and the Pembrokes sign under pressure not because they've suddenly become saintly, but because the cost of not signing is ruinous. 6 months later, the same museum hosts a summit. The Pembrokes sit in the front row, humbled their jewelry, traded for modesty. Charles now talks about implicit bias on stage, and Lila posts content about privilege that actually contains resources, not just remorseful captions. Richard Pembroke reads statistics into a microphone. Improved minority leadership numbers. New supplier diversity contracts, scholarship funds set in motion. Maya stands to the side and watches the room learn the lesson she didn't want to teach, but had to. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. The victory is satisfying, but it's not perfect. Critics say it was PR that change under threat isn't real transformation, that once the cameras look away, things could revert. They're right to ask. Real change is tedious. It's quarterly reports and oversight boards and audits. Boring things that unfortunately keep promises from going stale. And Maya knows this, so she insists on transparency. Quarterly audits, public reporting, independent oversight, because accountability that isn't measurable is just a show. What I want you to feel is not triumphalism, but the messy truth. Power can be exposed without violence. Dignity can be a strategy, and social media can be both the problem and part of the solution. Maya's story is not about a one-night fall from grace for the Pembrokes. It's about how a single moment of cruelty can be turned into a lever for systemic pressure if the witnesses don't look away. It's also about the inner life of someone who was judged on appearance, who felt the burn of public humiliation, and yet used that fire to light a path for others. So here's the open question I want you to wrestle with, and tell me in the comments. When a powerful family is publicly exposed for racist behavior, what matters more, punishment that feels satisfying or a structured plan that actually changes behavior? Can a company that once weaponized its privilege ever become a force for good, and do we owe them the chance to prove it? Or is the only acceptable outcome their permanent exclusion from influence? Share your stories. Have you ever seen someone rise after being humiliated, or have you seen apologies that were only for show? Tell me what you think. Right, wrong, what justice looks like to you. Tag a friend who needs to hear this, drop your take below. And if this hit you, hit like and subscribe so we can keep talking about how dignity, not humiliation, should shape our work and our lives.